Today I'm going to talk about experiencing the true self when it feels as though we've been wronged. And the example I'm going to use is a situation where a man sold me a fake subway card. Everything that arises comes from the true self. So the more we can find within ourselves the part of us that sees the appropriateness of every experience, the more in contact we are with the true self. So as I look at this experience, I'm going to show how I found within me not only an appropriateness for the experience, but a gratitude for the experience. So what happened was I was in the subway in a rush, wanting to buy a subway card. I was at the machine attempting to make the transaction, and 3 times a man canceled my transaction and stopped me from continuing to make the purchase. Finally, I turned to him and he said, "Hey, buy this card from me." And repeatedly saying, "Trust me, trust me, trust me." And he explained it was over $100 worth card, but he would sell it to me for $40. Of course, red alarm bells went off in my head, but I was in a rush and I decided to go for it. So he helped me get through the turnstiles with the card for one time, but the next time that I went to go use the card, it didn't work. So I had essentially paid $40 for a $2.25 subway ride. So after that experience, I felt really frustrated. I felt like I'd been taken advantage of, that the little goodwill that I had towards the guy had been trampled, that I'd been manipulated, and I was really angry. So I went into investigation. The first thing I investigated was the anger that I felt towards him, because I knew that this anger was the worst of my experience, because having anger towards another person is a constriction around my heart and is the most painful thing I can have. I don't feel the natural lovingness that is my true self, and in that moment it's a very painful experience. So I looked to see in what situation would his choice have seemed appropriate, or even better yet, we're all not that different. In what situation might I have considered a similar action? And looking at my life as now, I wouldn't even think of that. So I started putting myself into more and more challenging situations. What if I had been raised thinking that no normal avenue was available to me to make money? What if more and more things that I tried failed, and more needs that I had, needs for rent or needs for getting stuff for my kids, kept mounting up? And again, what if the normal avenues just never seemed to pay off for me? It's sort of like an experience, say I were starving and I was in a room where there was a buffet and I wasn't allowed to take any food from the buffet. I could imagine myself seriously considering or even stealing food off a plate, knowing that the person that I stole the food from could easily go to the buffet and get some more. So that's the situation I could feel him in. He had become so desperate that he did something that clearly he didn't want to do. Nobody wants to say, "Trust me, trust me, trust me," when inside he knows he's being untrustworthy. That's a very painful thing to have to do. And then when I saw how desperate he must feel, a whole wave of compassion washed over me, and I felt very connected to him. The next thing to look at was anger that I felt towards myself for not having trusted the alarm bells and for not having said no. And so I investigated within myself and saw how distrusting myself had been a survival mechanism I had chosen, because I was afraid of my ability to say no and how it might get me into trouble. And seeing now that that ability to say no was a vitally important aspect of myself. I mean, this time I had lost only $40, but in the future, if I didn't learn to say no, who knows what more could happen. So I welcomed back this ability to say no and embraced it and could feel my trust in it rising. Now looking at the situation, I had paid only $40, less than a therapy session, and I felt more connected to things going on in the world about me, to people, and I felt this other part of me awakening. Wow, that $40 was a well spent $40. That experience was something I wanted. And in that gratitude, I felt myself aligned with the true self. So anytime that you're wronged, look to see what is there for you to appreciate in that experience. In what way is it appropriate? But when you find that, you're reconnected to the true self.